Hi, welcome to the United Panther Movement Book Club. Today we are reading the conclusion of The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. Conclusion. Now, comrades, now is the time to decide to change sides. We must shake off the great mantle of night which has enveloped us and reach for the light. The new day which is dawning must find us determined, enlightened, and resolute. We must abandon our dreams and say farewell to our old beliefs and former friendships. Let us not lose time in useless laments or sickening mimicry. Let us leave this Europe, which never stops talking of man, yet massacres him at every one of its street corners, at every corner of the world. For centuries, Europe has brought the progress of other men to a halt and enslaved them for its own purposes and glory. For centuries, it has stifled virtually the whole of humanity in the name of a so-called spiritual adventure. Look at it now teetering between atomic destruction and spiritual disintegration. And yet nobody can deny its achievements at home have not, okay, let me rewind. And yet nobody can deny its achievements at home have not been crowned with success. Okay. Europe has taken over leadership of the world with fervor, cynicism, and violence. And look how the shadow of its monument spreads and multiplies. Every movement Europe makes bursts the boundaries of space and thought. Europe has denied itself not only humility and modesty, but also solicitude and tenderness. Its only show of miserliness has been toward man. Only toward man it has shown itself to be a word I ain't gonna say, and murderously carnivorous. So, my brothers, how could we fail to understand that we have better things to do than follow that in that Europe's footsteps? This Europe, which never stopped talking of man, which never stopped proclaiming its sole concern was man, we now know the price of suffering humanity has paid for every one of its spiritual victories. Come, comrades, the European game is finally over. We must look for something else. We can do anything today, provided we do not ape Europe, provided we are not obsessed with catching up with Europe. Europe has gained such a mad and reckless momentum that it has lost control and reason and is heading at a dizzying speed towards the brink from which we would be advised to remove ourselves as quickly as possible. It is all too true, however, that we need a model, schemas, and examples. For many of us, the European model is the most elating. But we have seen in the preceding ages how misleading such an imitation can be. European achievements, European technology, and European lifestyles must stop tempting us and leading us astray. When I look for a man in European lifestyles and technology, I see a constant denial of man, an avalanche of murders. Man's condition, his projects, and collaboration with others on tasks that strengthen man's totality are new issues which require genuine inspiration. Let us decide not to imitate Europe, and let us tense our muscles and our brains in a new direction. Let us endeavor to invent a man in full, something which Europe has been incapable of achieving. 2 centuries ago, a former European colony took it into its head to catch up with Europe. It has been so successful that the United States of America has become a monster where the flaws, sickness, and inhumanity of Europe have reached frightening proportions. Comrades, have we nothing else to do but create a third Europe? The West saw itself on a spiritual adventure. It is in the name of the Spirit, meaning the spirit of Europe, that Europe justified its crimes and legitimized the slavery in which it held 4/5 of humanity. Yes, the European spirit is built on strange foundations. The whole of European thought developed in places that were increasingly arid and increasingly inaccessible. Consequently, it was natural that the chances of encountering man became less and less frequent. A permanent dialogue with itself, an increasingly obnoxious narcissism inevitably paved the way for a virtual delirium where intellectual thought turns into agony, since the reality of man as a living, working, self-made being is replaced by words, an assemblage of words and tensions generated by their meanings. There were Europeans, however, who urged the European workers to smash this narcissism and break with this denial of reality. Generally speaking, the European workers, excuse me.
Yes.
Thank you, Jay. Generally speaking, the European workers did not respond to the call. The fact was that the workers believed they too were part of the prodigious adventure of the European spirit. All the elements for a solution to the major problems of humanity existed at one time or another in European thought. But the Europeans did not act on the mission that was designated them, and which consisted of virulently pondering these elements, modifying their configuration, their being, of changing them, and finally taking the problem of man to an infinitely higher plane. Today we are witnessing a stasis of Europe. Comrades, let us flee this stagnation where dialectics has gradually turned into a logic of the status quo. Let us re-examine the question of man. Let us re-examine the question of cerebral reality, the brain mass of humanity in its entirety, whose affinities must be increased, whose connections must be diversified, and whose communications must be humanized again. Does anybody else want to read a couple pages?
I'd like to read it.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is it okay for me to read, or?
Go ahead, comrade.
Whoever wants
All right,
to.
Comrade Che, thank you. Where were we at again? Sorry.
Come, brothers.
Come, brothers.
All right, Che. Gotcha. Thank you. Come, brothers. We have far too much work on our hands to revel in outmoded games. Europe has done what it had to do, and all things considered, it has done a good job. Let us stop accusing it, but let us say to it firmly it must stop putting on such a show. We no longer have reason to fear it. Let's stop then envying it. The third world is today facing Europe as one colossal mass whose project must be to try and solve the problems this Europe was incapable of finding the answers to. But what matters now? Now is not a question of profitability, not a question of increased productivity, not a question of production rates. No, it is a question of is not a question of back to nature. It is the very basic question of not dragging man in directions which mutilate him, of not imposing on his brain tempests that rapidly obliterate and unhinge it. The notion of catching up the notion of catching up must not be used as a pretext to brutalize man, to tear him from himself and his inner consciousness, to break him, to kill him. No, we do not want to catch up with anyone, but what we want is to walk in the company of man, every man, night and day, for all times. It's not a question of straining the caravan out where groups are spaced so far apart they cannot see the one in front, and men who are no longer recognize each other meet less and less and talk to each other less and less. The third world must start over a new history of man, which takes account of not only the occasional prodigious. How do you pronounce that word?
Prodigious.
Prodigious. Not only the occasional prodigious theses maintained by Europe, but also its crimes, the most heinous of which have been committed at the very heart of man, the pathological dismembering of his functions and the erosion of his unity. In the context of the community, the fracture, the stratification, and the bloody tensions fed by class. And finally, on the immense scale of humanity, the racial hatred, slavery, exploitation, and above all else, the bloodless genocide whereby 1.5 billion men have been written off. So, comrades, let us not pay tribute to Europe by creating status, institutions, and societies that draw their inspiration from it. Humanity expects other things from us than this grotesque and generally obscene emulation. If we want if we want to transform Africa into a new Europe, America into a new Europe, then let us entrust the destinies of our countries to the Europeans. They will do a better job than the best of us. But if we want humanity to take one step forward, if we want to take it to another level than the one where Europe has placed it, then we must innovate. We must be pioneers. If we want to respond to the expectations of our people, we must look elsewhere beside Europe. Moreover, if we want to respond to the expectations of the Europeans, we must not send them back a reflection, however ideal, of their society and their thought that periodically sickens even them. For Europe, for ourselves, and for humanity, comrades, we must make a new start, develop a new way of thinking, and endeavor to create a new man. And we're done! We're done with Wretched of the Earth. Oh, well, actually, no. I don't think this was written by Fanon himself.
Nope, this was somebody else's input there. So if y'all want, we can skip that. If y'all want to, we can read it. Don't matter to me.
How long is it? That's the question.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, well, 10 and a half pages.
That's a bit too long, honestly.
Okay, we can skip the
You just stop.
sidebar there and just type discussion here.
But yeah, this book was amazing, and that final piece right there was beautiful because he's right. Fanon is right. We can't take our inspiration. We can't take inspiration and create an ideological and political line that mirrors European imperialism and capitalism. We can't do that. We can't allow ourselves to fall into individualistic, bourgeois, reactionary thought and behavior. We have to create a new society, a new culture, a new socioeconomic system, a new superstructure, new relations of production, social relations, mode of production, so on and so forth. We don't need to create another Europe. We need to create socialism. And that's what we have to do. And that right there, what he was saying, is so spot on, because every quote unquote achievement that is designated to Europe was taken, stolen, and robbed by colonized was taken, stolen, and robbed from the colonized people. Hell, even a lot of the achievements attributed to the Roman Empire, they literally just stole from all the societies that they colonized. The Greeks, the Northern Africa, the Celtics, and so on and so forth.
I like how he also pointed out there that the fact that they colonized everybody else is exactly what stagnated their further progress from those points. Because had those areas of the rest of the world not been fucking colonized, they would have continued on their own technological development path. They would have continued on their own development of, architecture and all those other things that right now, what we see out of white supremacist assholes trying to claim that any innovation that has developed is thanks to white people and shit, that's just their fucking arrogance and their literal denial of the fact that they enslaved every fucking body else.
Yep.
And took over their shit and stole all their fucking resources. And it's like, excuse me, who really did that work? Who really created those developments?
We did.
Colonized people.
We did.
Hell, and that, and you're spot on. That right there is what I really liked because yeah, fuck, I somewhat forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, had Europe just fucked off and just focused on their own fucking shit, they would have literally been better off technologically, culturally, psychologically, and so on and so forth. Because colonization affects both the colonized and the colonizer. It's just fucking sickening and saddening. And I've said this before, and I said it again. I had this argument with someone. Someone literally tried telling me that white supremacy can be an aspect of a culture, quote unquote, and that's just white supremacy is not an aspect of a culture. White supremacy itself is not a culture. White supremacy, imperialism, and colonialism is the death of culture. It is the appropriation, erasure, and co-opting of culture to uphold the interests of the bourgeois. So I always find it funny how people try and make that fucking point to me, and people always try and fucking say that white people have made everything, because the more they fall into that white supremacist bullshit, the more they are destroying their own culture, their own roots to Europe, their own genuine roots to actual European culture. The more they engage in that white supremacist bullshit, the more they are literally killing off their own culture.
Yeah. And with that, it's ammunition against life. That's what white supremacy is. It's ammunition against all life.
It's the death of it.
It's the death of it. Because they know that they will be next too. They know deep down inside that they will be next too. That's why they say all that bullshit about white supremacy, being such a great thing, because they know they will be next too. They know they will be next too. Because once again, this is a matter of who's next. Who's next to be killed? Who's next for their land to be taken, to be commodified? Who's next to be recruited into the circus, the global bourgeois circus? Mm-hmm. And they know that they will dump those people on the corner of a street if they have to, and go on to the next people to target and kill and steal and rob and loot. They know that. That's why they say all that bullshit, because they know that they will be next.
Right on. And yep, all power to that. And it's true. And it's true, because every single time, well, not every single time, but a lot of the time, whenever I see colonizer people not wanting to betray their white privilege and struggle alongside colonized people, one of the responses usually is, but what if they do the same to us? What if they slaughter us? What if they steal from us? And it's fucking bullshit.
That's why a lot of the current white supremacist groups have jumped on this bullshit, pretending that they are being genocided, and it's like, you've never been genocided.
Exactly, you've been a genocider.
Y'all are in a delusion. That's the point.
Pretty much, yeah.
And y'all know y'all in a delusion. Y'all know y'all not being killed off, because white doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a white people. They never existed. There is such thing as Celtic. There is such thing as English. There is such thing as French, but there's no such
Egyptian
thing. Y'all are not dying off. There's no
exactly.
Therein lies the difference between this idea of race based on what shade of pigment are you, which is invalid, versus your actual ethnicity and culture, which is valid. So I laugh when people talk about, white pride, and I'm like, wait, what flavor of vanilla are you?
Like, where did you?
White pride shit is invalid, versus if you were like, yeah, I love my French history or something, and
that's the difference.
That's
the difference, because you're celebrating who you truly are, not this biological marker that the bourgeois have made to deem what's profitable and who's not profitable. You're not white, you're French. You're not white, you're English. You're not white, you're Scandinavian. That is who you are. Not this delusion.
Exactly.
And if we really wanted to talk about what color somebody is, I'm sorry, you're not white. And see, my shirt is white. You're pink or you're peach.
Yep, literally.
And,
And I just find I just find that so, I was talking to someone, I was talking to someone about this, and you want to know what they said? They literally told me that indigenous culture does not exist, but that white regional culture, quote unquote, exists. I'm like, what the fuck is white regional culture? What is
What
that?
is that?
Like,
What
like,
is
like,
that?
like, what is that? Like,
Are
what
you
even
talking
fucking
about
is that?
bourgeois culture? Are you talking about the bourgeoisie? Because that's what it is. That's
I
what
have
you're
said
talking about.
before. I have said before, white people have culture, but their culture does not come from their whiteness. It doesn't come from the fucking color of their skin. It comes from what ethnic group they are from. It comes
What
from
place in Europe they're from?
exactly. That's where it fucking comes from. I have culture, but that culture doesn't come from me being white, quote unquote. It comes from me being Cuban. That's where that culture comes
Heritage
from. It
is
has
not
nothing to do with
biological experience. That's it. Heritage is
exactly.
not biological.
It's not.
It's cultural and political. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. That's it.
Yep.
I mean, hey, like New Africans, we have a mix of Ibo traditions, of Yoruba traditions, of Bakongo traditions, of Ewa traditions, of Bamileke traditions, of Tenme traditions, Mende traditions, Songhai traditions, because those were the groups that were targeted in the Ma'afa, in the so-called slave trade. Our culture is because of a combination of those groups that were kidnapped and because of our ancestors' resistance to our culture literally being stripped away the moment that they've kidnapped us. That is who we are. We are the continuation of our ancestors. We're not some biological marker. We did not come from outer space. We came from across the pond, from our homeland. That's where we come from.
You know, it's really, really amusing that I've found amongst these white supremacist groups is they really fucking think that they are a quote unquote superior race because aliens came and, altered just the DNA of the people in Europe to make them superior. And it's like, what fucking crack pipe did you just put down? I'm curious.
It's funny. It's so funny to me. It's so funny to me when they say that.
And it's like, no, just being white is just the result of 3 genetic mutations, which led to a lower pigment level, so you could absorb enough vitamin D or absorb enough sunlight for your body to produce vitamin D.
That's history.
To survive in
history.
Areas where you didn't get much fucking sunlight. That's
like
it.
England.
An evolutionary step. It was an acclamation.
Like, come on.
That's all it is. It's an acclamation to your geological materialistic conditions. That's what it is. That's all it is. African people, the reason why they have wider noses is because having a wider nose better allows you to better regulate heat. Literally it. That's
curly hair.
That's literally fucking it.
And that is a fact.
Also help distribute heat from your head.
It is a fact. Yeah. Yeah.
And having a more narrow nose structure allows you to better deal with the cold, with colder climates, which is why a lot of European people have narrow noses. That's it. It's not because it's more quote unquote attractive
to the condition.
Exactly. Hell, like I have a Nubian nose structure. Which what we were talking about Sisters N, remember? Like I literally have like a Nubian structured nose. That has nothing to do because I'm inferior or superior, whatever. It's literally just because my ancestors somewhere down the line were Nubian. That's it. That's literally it.
And the Nubian people and the Amazigh people were intermingling a lot too, just like the Guanche people of the Canary Islands. So, like, there's no such thing as separate races, because if there was such thing, then we would be completely genetically different, but we're genetically similar to each other. So this whole idea of a so-called white race is just, it's BS. It's BS. It's
Exactly.
really, they know it. They know that they're not quote unquote white. They know that they're English. They know that they're Irish. They know that they're French. They know they have some Greek here and there. They know that. But once again, because of the bourgeois class, because of bourgeois influence, they're psychologically white, in quotes.
Yep.
So they think that they're under attack. Mind you, the guy that said that transgenderism must be eradicated from all public life, that kicked off the whole fascist atomic bomb back in March, he's Sicilian.
Ron DeSantis?
No, it was another guy at some Republican convention or something. He's Sicilian.
As a Sicilian, that would make him dark-haired, darker-skinned, and also one of the people who would have been fucking eradicated by Nazis.
Sicilian.
Because his ass ain't white enough. This is something they to grasp or acknowledge too, is that this colorism was even being applied there, and in some cases still is, of like, if you were actually of the Mediterranean region of Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, etc., you're actually light brown. You're not pink or peach. You're light brown.
You're literally Sicilian. You're not
and
white.
Hell,
Sicilian. That is who
and
you
hell.
are.
Sorry. And hell, back during when the Roman Empire was forming, and a little bit before that, the Sicilians intermingled with the Phoenicians a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So to this day, there are people who are Sicilian who have some Phoenician DNA in them.
Yeah, and I think the Sicilians are a indigenous people too. So like,
they're indigenous. They're indigenous to Sicilia, to Sicily.
Yeah, they are. That's why I say I'm calling them out on who they truly are, not this biological marker that they think is under attack. You're Sicilian. That is who you are. That is where you come from. You come from Sicilia, right? That is who you are. You're Sicilian, not white. Like, what? Did you forget about your roots, about where you came from, where your parents came from, when you got here to this hellscape? You're
In
Sicilian.
some ways, yes. Because, okay, at first, there was a lot of racism here against Irish people, against Scottish people, against Italian people, the whole nine yards. If you were not of an Aryan nation, then you were just as
targeted
and targeted, yes, as anybody else for, not being basically the right flavor of white according to the fucking white supremacists. And it wasn't until those groups actually started participating in anti-blackness, anti-brownness, anti-redness, that then they became accepted as part of this white community, and got amalgamated there as, oh, well, you're white now because you'll participate in racism against other fucking people, and it's all fucked. We're not different species. We are one race of the human race. If we were different species, then we wouldn't be able to breed together and actually fucking produce progeny that is capable of breeding. We would be limited, like when horses and donkeys fuck and make mules that are sterile. Okay?
Yeah.
We are the same species, the same race, and they just want to ignore all of that because they have mind fucked themselves into this delusional ideal of some kind of fucking supremacy for having a couple of genetic mutations.
It's so funny. And the other guy, I believe his name was Vivek, at that mess of a Republican debate that they had. He's Tamil Brahmin from India.
Mhm.
He's not white. He's Tamil Brahmin. That is who he is. That is who he truly is. That's his parents. That's where he comes from. He's not this white person. He's Tamil Brahmin. That is who he is. Not this complex. And that's the thing with colonialism. When you are so strict from who you truly are, you become your oppressor. And that's exactly the case with these two, is that they have been so stripped of their actual identity from who they truly are, that they have adopted this complex that the so-called whites are under attack, that they are going, quote unquote, extinct. All this reactionary, revisionist, ethnocentric BS, that they are literally trying to do anything that they can in order to bring everyone down with them, because they know that capitalism will not last. So it's essentially their parting gift to their delusion that they have been bought into their entire lives.
Yep. And what they tried to claim as evidence of white genocide is a lower white birth rate than what we've seen in previous generations. It's like, there's a lower birth rate across the board for everybody, because a lot of people are going, okay, I'd rather have 1 or 2 kids instead of fucking 12 to 16. Or people going, okay, I'd rather not have kids at all because I can't fucking afford to feed my own face, let alone some extras, because capitalism is fucking annihilating our ability to fucking survive. And it's one of those things that makes me go, what the fuck are you talking about anyways? Because for the entire last 200 to 300,000 years that we are aware of that humans have existed on this planet in our current form, we only had a population globally that was a fraction of what we have now. In the last couple of 100 years, we went from hundreds of thousands of years of having less than 1 billion people on this planet to boom, now we are at 8 billion some people. And it's like, there is no fucking threat of population collapse from lower birth rates for any group of people. None. And a lot of these fuckers are just incels who their fucking attitude towards women is so goddamn repulsive. They are literally walking pussy repellent, and they want to cry and be big mad that they can't find a woman willing to breed with them. And it's like, maybe you should change your stinking fucking thinking, because that right there is exactly why your penis is unchosen, motherfucker. It's not genocide for nobody to want to fuck you.
Yep.
Society where, like, we don't need to depend on getting married to men in order to survive, because we have jobs, we can buy our own homes, our own cars and shit. You have to actually be wantable. You're, you know,
like,
in other words,
colonial skills anymore.
We're not. And speak about the very women you claim to want to be with is deterrent, because we're like, ew, like your fucking attitude, we don't want you. That is not genocide. That is just you being unchosen because you have a shit fuck attitude. I'm mad about it.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Yep. You want to know another funny thing? Another funny thing is that I always hear of colonizer people saying shit like, oh, so you're telling me that I can't appreciate my culture? And I always tell them, no one's telling you that you can't appreciate your German heritage or your English heritage or your Italian heritage. No one's telling you that you can't. No one's telling you that you cannot express your culture and your heritage from your ancestors. No one's telling you to do that. There is a difference, although where it becomes repulsive is when you think that your culture is white culture. That's where it becomes a big no-no. That's
where
where
it becomes a
because
problem.
that's not culture. Color is not fucking culture. It's
Color
not. It's
culture.
it's not. It's not fucking culture. It's white supremacist bullshit. You can appreciate your German heritage and culture. You can appreciate your Italian heritage and culture. You can appreciate your Norwegian heritage and culture. But when it turns to quote
You
unquote
call it
white
white?
culture,
That
that's
is
when
a
it becomes a problem, because that's not culture, that's white supremacy, that is genocide. In fact, you appreciating your quote unquote white culture is actually destroying your heritage.
heritage.
Literally,
It's destroying your
it's the
heritage.
death of culture. These white supremacist fucks are talking about how they can't appreciate their culture and how it's being erased. Meanwhile, them engaging in white supremacy is literally destroying the last fragments of culture they literally have.
Right. They're the ones
destroying
erasing.
They're the ones literally erasing their own culture. Like that's what the fucking Nazis did. They literally co-opted other
did.
cultures, including their own culture, German culture, to uphold white supremacy. Had the Nazis fucking survived to this very fucking day, German culture would be fucking dying off right fucking now.
It would
Literally.
be. And they literally did the same thing to the indigenous Africans in Namibia that they targeted as well. They had, I talked about this a while ago. They had concentration camps there too when the Nazis were in power. They did. There's a whole book on it. Germany's Black Holocaust. There's a whole book on it. They talk about Jewish people. They talk about African people. They talk about them together because it was literally all going on at the same time, leading up to the rise in Nazi power and during the era of the full-blown Nazi power.
Yep.
Like, it was really talking about both sides.
Indeed it was. And like they even targeted people who were of Germanic descent too, simply for being of a different cultural view, a different societal view, and standing against the fascism and stuff too. So, there's a reason why that famous poem starts with "First they came for the communists." Because before they started rounding up Jews and Romani and African peoples and Indian people, they rounded up the communists of going, they're against our ideology, so we've got to take them out first. And
the bourgeois ideology.
Up too, but real quick, before you go, Sean, I want to point out a quick note, a difference between actual German culture versus that bullshit. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and about a half hour north of Flint is a little town called Frankenmuth that was founded by Germans who moved there, getting the bullshit Germany. And when you go to Frankenmuth, you will see examples of actual German culture. There are fudge making shops. There are awesome restaurants there that make delicious food that is, cultural German food that is fucking phenomenal. And anytime that it's actually, nice outside, there is a beer tent set up because beer, okay, beer. That is a very German thing. Lots of beer and bands on stage dressed in like lederhosen and shit.
Lederhosen, yeah.
Playing German music for you to get up and dance to while you enjoy your fucking beer. So, like, that is examples of actual German culture, not the swastika and all this fucking shit.
Aryan, not all that bourgeois BS. Not that. There's a difference. That's actual German culture, and then you have the Nazi, Aryan, supremacist, whatever they had going on and still do. Like, there is a big break in that.
And you see no semblance at all of actual German culture in these Nazi groups that want to fucking try to claim whatever shit culturally. It's just like all you're doing is clinging to a fucking Nazi symbol that, I'm pretty sure Pokemon lasted longer than. Sean, Sean, I see you got your hand up still. Go ahead, hun. I know you got some thoughts to share on this.
Okay, so you guys were mentioning incels and all of, that discussion. A lot of them do self-work, like physical improvement, eating better, blah, 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 but not a single one of them wants to do the shadow work. Hey, maybe I'm actually a piece of shit and my ideals are shit. And even if they do take a look at some of these things, they don't do it with a critical lens or even a shred of, hey, maybe, just maybe, the other 7.6 billion people on the planet might be right and I'm wrong.
That part. Yeah. It's one of those things where they literally think, well, I got a good job. I went to the gym and worked out and I have a 6-pack now. I drive a nice car. Where's all the bitches? And it's like, that right there's your problem, because you see us as bitches. You see us as fucking a commodity that like is supposed to throw itself at you because you duped each other into thinking that what women want is good job, nice car, 6-pack, and a lot of them also try to whine about, oh, well, nobody wants me because I'm 5'6". The fuck they don't. I know a lot of people who are short and still get, plenty of pull when it comes to the dating world. That has nothing to do with it. Your mind frame has everything to do with it. It does not matter if you are short, if you are tall, if you are fat, if you are skinny, if you are muscular. What matters is, are you a decent person that other people actually want to be around, and who someone would look at and go, you know what, this person would make an excellent partner for me in life. But if you have a stank ass fucking attitude that, women are a resource, a commodity, nobody's going to find that attractive. Nobody's going to want that. Nobody is interested in being treated like their only use in life is their sex organs. That's devaluing people to nothing more than their fucking, biological workings. It's pretty fucked. It really is incredibly frustrating that so many of them don't want to look in the mirror and do their shadow work, like you were saying, Sean, because they don't want to look at, could there possibly be something wrong with my perception of the world around me? Could there be something wrong with the way that I view other people? And it even shows in some of their political shit, because I've noticed that some of these incels who have started to look into socialism literally think pussy should be socialized. They think that they should, under socialism, be allotted a woman. And it's like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Look, what's wrong with you? Clearly you're because you don't know what the hell you're doing. They don't know what the hell you're doing. And you can blame your parents for that, because ain't no way that you think that this is what socialism also entails. You're completely misguided. I am so sorry. You are so misguided. It's absolutely it's so funny to me. It's just so comedic to me that you would think that being an incel is communist, that being an incel is socialist, that it's Maoist. Like y'all, have you not read Marx? Have y'all actually not read Mao? Actually? Because all the things that y'all are spewing out ain't nothing that these people have preached at all. So,
hell, sorry.
Come on.
Yep. Hell, well, to paraphrase Marx, he said something along the lines of how far a society has advanced, to see how far a society has advanced, see how women are treated within that society. Not an exact quote, but that's basically what he said. And Mao himself also said that women hold up half the sky as well. So, yep.
Yeah, there's an absolute world of difference between how the incel nation views things versus how any of our revolutionary predecessors did. You know, when you get into real Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, Panther ideology, etc., anybody who's on the real left, there's definitely an adamance there that you cannot have a true revolution without true liberation of everybody. And that means liberation from boundaries revolving around your gender, revolving around your sexuality, revolving around your skin color, whatever the form of oppression is, you must be liberated from that. And that's where I see, like, okay, a lot of these incel nation fucks are pat socks or MAGA communists, both of which are terms that are contradictory of themselves, because you cannot fucking have a patriotism towards a fucked system and still be socialist and want to change that system. That's,
It's a complete contradiction.
like, self-contradictory, and they don't grasp at all that the things that we discuss about material conditions needing to be met applies to materials, resources like housing, food, etc., things that are necessary for your survival as an individual.
Or human life.
Having a partner, that is not a material resource. That's, did anybody choose you in return? Because it's not a one-way thing. You have to choose each other. You can't just go and treat women like, I'm at a meat market, I pick out that slab right there, that one's the one I want. It has to choose you back. So you know, the fact that they try to devalue, you know, so many people based on just that, it shows a fundamental lack of understanding of what material conditions actually are, because getting laid is not necessary for your survival. Maybe for you to pass on your genetics, but if nobody wants to incubate your sperm and pass on your genetics, you're shit out of luck. Fix your fucking attitude.
No, like that is definitely true. And even with the pack socks, like I had no idea that that was an actual thing. I didn't even know what it meant until one of the comrades told me what it was. It was like patriotic socialism, and I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense at all.
No, it's literally Nazis wearing a communist aesthetic. It's assholes trying to make horseshoes go from being absolute bullshit to being something in reality. And it's like, you're constantly in contradiction with yourself there at that point.
It's literally a contradiction. Like, you're literally a walking contradiction. You cannot be a socialist and be patriotic for an empire state. It doesn't go both ways. I don't understand how, like, you can be a revolutionary but still uplift the empire in some way. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
It really doesn't, because the people that they fucking worship and fawn over are people like Abraham Lincoln, who they're like, oh yeah, see, he was so progressive, he freed the slaves. Motherfucker, he did not want to, for one, and for two, he mass murdered indigenous people. He literally fucking hung, I believe it was 38 native people who, you know, were revolutionaries who were standing up against the system and trying to fight for their fucking liberation and their rights, and did a mass hanging of 38 indigenous people all at once. So no, Abraham fucking Lincoln does not deserve worship or being fawned over or even acknowledged as anything more than also a racist piece of shit, just like the people he was fighting against.
Like that was the Lakota Sioux people, and they just got their land years after that hanging. Yep. Many years after that hanging happened, they just got their land back. So you're lost, because Lincoln was not for Native people. He was not for African people. He was against African people. He was against Native people, especially the Lokoso people. And literally, it literally says in the 13th Amendment, if you actually read it, he was literally appraising what will become the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
Indentured servitude.
Mm-hmm. As punishment for crime. Therefore, we've got to create some crime for people to be guilty of so we can enslave them, right? Because that's what the system's done since.
So we can justify it. Like, we got to create the conditions that will make them commit these so-called crimes so we can have a reason to, have this continue. They create the problem so they can justify.
And said quote unquote crimes will always come predominantly out of a necessity to fucking survive from the materialistic conditions. Literally.
I mean, literally, like at the beginning of the modern day neo-slavery complex, the prison system, those were new African lumpen proletariats that were targeted for petty quote unquote crimes and were sent to these death camps because they were essentially death camps. Like, let's call them out for what they truly are. They're death camps. To like places like Angola Penitentiary in Louisiana. Angola is the biggest prime example of this because Lead Belly, who is a big folk legend, an amazing folk icon, was at Angola for murdering someone, but even still, he was a lumpen proletariat. Like, that counts. It doesn't matter if they actually committed something or not. The fact of the matter is, it's all about profit. It was all about profit at the end of the day, because the South lost a lot of economic leeway because they supposedly no longer had their cash cows, which was my ancestors. And so they had to create that system via the Black Codes, via Jim Crow, in order to get their cash flow going. And once they saw that it was bringing in the money again, then it expanded that way. But we still want to uplift the system, knowing that it's just slavery 2.0. It just doesn't look like a cotton field.
Well said. Black and accurate. Comrade Shay, you've been kind of quiet over there. I'm curious if you got any thoughts.
I know. Sometimes it's better to listen and learn, and y'all was saying some good stuff, I must say, so let me add a little bit to that, to everything that was said. I was reading an article the other day pertaining to the May Day. And in the middle of the article, they started talking about the definition of rednecks. And I said, what? So I kept on reading, and they tell me that rednecks was attributed later on to so-called white people, but actually rednecks were workers who used to tie a red handkerchief around their necks in order to accumulate some of the sweat that they used to work hard on. And so that's actually where the term rednecks come from, and not only so-called whites carried these handkerchiefs, but they were blacks as well, But nevertheless, man, as always, the system is what it is, and it attributed rednecks to so-called white people. Now we talked about prisons for a moment, and we need to understand one thing, that We live in a vicious, very vicious society, a very racist, very fascistic, very horrible society, a very violent society, or I should say system. And its system creates environments, in its own image. Just like in the Bible, in its own image, it creates these environments. And then they take these people and place them in these violent environments, and of course, people gonna rebel eventually. They got to rebel because, conditions causes resistance. It creates resistance. People cannot withstand all this oppression, just like what happened in Attica and happened in other prisons, you know. So this, once they place these people in these institutions of concentration camps, because that's what it is, people just rebelled, and as a result of that, in a society, once they in this society that is by nature violent, then they take these people out of this environment and place them in another environment more worse than what that environment. And that's what becomes concentration camps. And this is why people, man, rebel all the time in prison, because of the conditions. I'm going to be speaking on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to be speaking in New York City. And I'm going to be talking about what I've just finished laying out, but more extensively. And I'm going to be talking about why Attica is all of us, because a lot of people just use that term, don't even know why. So in the essence, just to give you a little insight, we are all Atticus, all of us. What happened at Attica happens to all of us now in so-called free society. But like I said, we live in a violent system, and the system creates these environments, that are very violent, and then they place us in these environments, and they expect miracles, which ain't gonna happen, So that's what I'm gonna be. I'm not gonna be here Friday. I'm not gonna be here Saturday. I'm gonna be coming back on, hopefully by Monday. So try to get things rolling, man. I'm so anxious to get there because I want to see some of my brothers that I ain't seen in years. I see them, I talk to them on the phone and stuff, but talk to them is one thing. Seeing them and hugging my brothers and sisters, man,
it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
I'm glad you got the opportunity to get together with them and have some time together. That's so important.
Yeah, we gonna have fun, man. We gonna have fun. Have a little after we take care of our business. We probably gonna have a little rum or so. Just a little rum. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get too high, man, because I get lost. I'm in the city, man. I can't afford to get. I can't afford to get lost in the city. Not that I will, but when you're drunk, man, you lose sight. You lose sight of a lot of things, So that's basically it. But I like what y'all talked about this whole the question of so-called white, because white does not exist. It's something that was utilized by the system, man, to create division in society and create you white, you black, you green, you up, whatever, and that's what, and we as poor people, as oppressed people, we don't know no better. So we came to call so-called white people white, when in reality they ain't white. They may be German, yeah, they may be Irish, yeah, they may be Jews, yeah, I'll say Jews, but Israelites, yeah, but whatever. They're not white. There's no such thing as white, and right here in the Dominican Republic, let me tell you about the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic, neocolonialism. Do you know people work all their lives here and there's no such thing as retirement?
Yep.
What?
Retired, man. You just die working. And the money that they pay you, man, for your work, it's really ridiculous. It's not even worth. It's not even worth paying working. Because they don't make nothing, man. You know, so I'll be talking to some of my people, man, and they be telling me, yeah, I've been working, man, for 15 years, and I've been getting the same thing. You know how much it is? $12 an hour. Really, when
Yeah,
you look at it, man, that
chump,
ain't nothing, man.
chump
How are
And
change.
some people less. Some people make less.
How are
Yeah,
people
You
even
know, so
surviving on that when it's an area that has been colonized as a fucking like a uh a play area for the wealthy to come play on the islands. It's so industrialized of tourism there that it's made the fucking cost of living skyrocket, the cost of housing, because there's a bunch of these fucking rich fucks coming there and buying up all the land and housing to use as Airbnbs for wealthy people to travel there. So
yeah,
like it's no different than what you see in any of the other islands, whether it be Key West or, Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or Jamaica. All these areas have been so geared
commodified.
tourism as a place for the wealthy to come play that that's driven up the cost of living for the indigenous people of these islands and maybe
Exactly.
you're not supposed to survive. How the fuck are you supposed to survive on $12 an hour or less when your rent went from being, $400 or $500 a decade or two ago to like $2,500 for a fucking one-bedroom apartment? What the fuck?
That's
you know,
exactly the
there's a place here in the Dominican Republic that called Gringo neighborhood. Gringo, you know. And when you look at it, man, it's exclusively so-called white. Only rich people are allowed in this neighborhood, you know. And there's a war going on between Dominicans and Haitians. You know,
yep,
I don't know. I don't understand that because that's really ignorance. When people, man, you know, poor people, especially working class people, or just poor people in general, they talk about Haitians, how bad they are and stuff. And I try to tell them, man, you know, like, why is the Haitians bad? You know, tell me. You know, have you ever noticed your president? What has he done for you? You
have
know,
y'all
what
forget
has
about Trujillo? Did y'all forget about the Parsley massacre? Because
yeah,
he had such hatred against Haitian people, many of whom are dark skinned, by the way, dark skinned
yeah,
African people, killing
yeah,
them in droves in a week's time because they were a so-called detriment to so-called society, to the society of Dominicans, even though Haiti was the one to help the DR become free in the first place, and they were
yeah,
cordial for a while until Spain, until the French bourgeoisie came in and destroyed it. There is such racialized violence, institutionally speaking, in the DR, partly
yeah,
because of Trujillo, but because of the French, because of the Spaniard bourgeois forces, because they have made it such a pigmentocratic, racialized bowl of violence on that island of Quisqueya, because they have turned Dominicans, many of whom are of mixed Taino and indigenous African, against
yeah,
this African nation, this independent nation that was immediately taken under siege again by the same colonizers.
yeah.
It's
You
so
know,
violent.
In so many
it's
facets.
very hostile here, man. When it comes to talk about Haitians, man, because people they look at the Haitians, man, like the enemy. You know, and I said, no, man, you got this all wrong, man. You know, like Haitians are not our enemies. They've never been our enemies. You know, but I talk to them and they say, oh, Chad, you don't know, man. You don't actually live here, man. You're a Boricua, man. You come from Puerto Rico and all that stuff, man. You don't know nothing about Dominican. And I look at them and I say, yeah, really? I said, you got a lot of shit with you, man. You know, because to talk about, man, to talk about Dominicans, it's like to talking about Boricuas, man, because when you look at it, Boricuas and Dominicans are one and the same people. We come from the same roots. We have the same roots. We eat the same food. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, the only difference is that the Haitians, man, I don't know what language they speak. But
Haitian,
Dominican, go ahead.
Haitian, Creole, and French, but
Yeah,
definitely,
Creole.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the exploitation there is insane on so many levels. Um, One of my friends who lives in Key West now is originally from Haiti, and he had told me years ago about when he still lived in Haiti, he was working in anti-sex trafficking, and you know, it's one of those things that it's not enough for these fucking colonizers to exploit the land, to exploit the other resources there. These wealthy white fucks are coming there and kidnapping little kids to
Yeah.
sex traffic.
Yeah.
And
And it's happening. Yeah. That's true. It's happening.
constantly so bad that they actually accepted the help of some of the United States government and military in trying to pursue these traffickers, and got targets painted on their own back. My friend's wife and unborn child were murdered as payback from these traffickers for helping hunt them down. Things like that are so common down there. It's insane. That's why he left Haiti and moved to the States, to actually have some kind of protection for what was left of his family. Moved the rest of his family to Key West to be able to escape the shit, because spending so many years working against these traffickers, his name got put on a fucking hit list, you know. And it's like the sheer amount of exploitation of the people in these islands knows no fucking bounds at all.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. The
Yeah.
Virgin Islands is still under control by the U.S. Empire.
Yeah.
And the Party Massacre was
Yeah.
aided by the U.S. government. So, like, don't say anything about the Haitian people being enemies when you know damn well why that dynamic is the way it is. Because of the US, because of the French, because of the Spaniards. That's why. That's
Yeah.
why.
That little line of demarcation down the middle of the island separating the DR from Haiti is nothing but a fucking colonizer implementation of
On
separatism there.
On Taino land, there are still Taino Haitians. There are still Taino people on the so-called Dominican side. It was all one island. It was not Hispaniola. It was Haiti or Quisqueya. Either two of those names, you can use them interchangeably. But even still, it was one Taino island until the colonizers came and separated it. That border is a colonizer border. That border is warfare against indigenous people, against indigenous land, knowing that it was all one island. There are Tainos on the Haitian side and there are Tainos on the so-called Dominican side. But they're still Taino, period.
Yeah.
They're not
separate people. Taino. That's right. It reminds me of the time, man, of Vietnam. Remember Vietnam was separated at one time? South Vietnam and North Vietnam. And in the South Vietnam was the reactionaries, and North Vietnam was the revolutionaries, Ho Chi Minh people. You know, it's the same situation. Same situation here. You know, it's a divine conquer situation, man. You know, you got Dominicans, man, looking at darker Dominicans, man, and having the guts to say that they're not black.
Like,
you know,
come on.
I just stuck that, man, with a whole lot. Well, as a matter of fact, with my grandchildren, the dark skin, they're very dark skin. And I tell them all the time, I said, listen, you are black. Don't ever let nobody tell you different. You are black. He said, "Oh yeah, I'm black," and they look at themselves. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Other than that, they never said that they were black. They said they white. Ain't that something?
it's a lot because a lot of that Latina dad, a lot of that mestizaje, a lot of that tribalist politics that have seeped deep into the islands, especially by these colonizers. Like it runs so deep. It runs so deep. And there's pigmentocracy on that island. There's pigmentocracy in Borican. There's pigmentocracy in Cuba still. You know, that was how deep they went. That was how deep
Yeah.
it went to try to homogenize people of native roots, of indigenous African roots, or both, to this brown type of people. But that's not the case. But they've created that illusion, that false delusion, in order to make it known that even though they may have gained independence in some way, shape, or form, the presence of the colonizer is still there. It is still there.
Yeah.
And as long as they stay conditioned under that, then they will never ever truly feel that freedom to even experience that kind of freedom, as long as they stay psychologically under those conditions, because that was how far they were willing to go. That was how deep they went.
Yeah.
It's psychological
Very deep.
warfare. It
Yep.
literally serves the purpose of trying to get the colonized people to relate more to their oppressor than to their own people who are being oppressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
and
that's the case.
in Assam too, they have pushed Mestizaje on those indigenous peoples, on the Mexica, on the Nahuas, on the Hopi, on the Apache, on the Mayas, on those people. And it clearly shows, because they are psychologically, they're bourgeois colonizers, but not their native roots, no matter if they have a descent from one group or two groups, or many different groups. They still think that they are psychologically, Spaniard, and that they're Spaniard only, but not their true native identity. Because it doesn't matter how much colonizer blood you have in you, you're still native. But many of them don't think that. They think exactly what Columbus brought them. They think exactly what the Spaniards brought them. They think what the French brought. And that's exactly why there is such an identity crisis with those people too, because of that detachment from their identity, from their real identity, from who they truly are. I always say this, it doesn't fucking matter if you're so-called, connected culturally to your native roots. You're still native either way. It's not your fault that the Spaniards have stripped you from, your roots. It's not your fault that they stripped your grandparents and your great grandparents from their roots. It's not your fault. You're not your colonizer. You're still native, period. It doesn't matter how assimilated you are. Your ancestors have not left. You cannot change your ancestors. Your ancestors are still here through you. You are still here. You are still here. There are still descendants of Mexica communities, through Chicanos, through the so-called Hispanics, through the so-called Latinos. They are still very much here in the millions. In the millions. They are still here. They're not so-called white. They're not from Spain. They're not from some so-called white Latin place. They are still from this land, no matter how much colonizer blood they have in them. So the fact of the matter that they have went that deep with dividing native people with that tribalist BS, with that blood quantum BS, shows you just how psychologically deafening colonialism was on them, because it was so violent that they, like, it's that fear, that complex of fear that has stayed, that if they reclaim their roots, that if they reclaim their native identity, that if they still live as a native person, they will be beaten, they will be killed, their land will be taken away, which already happens anyway. But they make that complex of, if you don't denounce your native identity, you will be killed. But if you start calling yourself mestizo, if you start calling yourself Latino, if you start calling yourself Hispanic, then maybe we'll give you a chance. But clearly, it's a mind game. But that's the whole point. They make the conditions so they can justify cultural genocide of people. It was not only cultural, yeah, not only physical, but also especially psychological. And you can tell in the millions of descendants of native people that were directly imperialized by the Spaniards before there was even a southern border, if you could even call it that, literally separating about 50 native groups that were directly imperialized by the Spaniards, separated by this border. Like, come on.
I mean, we see it on the entirety of Turtle Island, you know? Yeah. From the very northern tip to the very southern tip where you got colonized at, we see this mind fuck being common in the colonization. It comes down to that fucking bullshit you're referring to there of the blood quantum. That's colonizer bullshit. We see it still playing out today when it comes to even getting tribal recognition of, you must be X% native in order to get, confirmed at the fucking state of your status. And it's like, fuck
native operated. That's not how native people operated. That's not how we operated.
Not at all. It's a matter of, if you're part of our bloodline, you are part of our bloodline, period.
You still have that bloodline. It doesn't matter how much you assimilate. You are still native. Your ancestors are still here no matter how much you assimilate. It's that simple. And the tribalized people get so much erasure from brainwashed native people who think that, having a certain amount of native blood in you, affirms or doesn't affirm your native identity. And that is so violent and so genocidal, because that was not how indigenous people operated at all. If you are part of the bloodline, you are part of the bloodline. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You are still Mexica. You are still Nahua. You are still Perpetua. You are still Maya. You're still part of these groups, no matter if you're in their communities or not. It doesn't matter. I mean, there are Maya communities in Florida. There are Maya communities in Florida, in Califaslan. There are still Maya communities there. Does it make them any less Maya? No, it does not. No, it does not. They are still Maya. They are still native to this land, no matter where they are on Turtle Island, no matter where they are on Abya. They are still Maya. They are still Mexica. They are still Nahua, period. Change in location and change in how you see yourself does not change your ancestors, no matter how hard you try.
Right. There's a world of difference between your actual genetic line, your actual ancestry, versus these bullshit societal paradigms, And it's really toxic the way so many people cling to the societal paradigms and feel the need to be exclusionary and put everybody in these neat little fucking boxes for how they want to identify them. And it's one of those things that I personally have found frustrating in my life, because I've had people come up to me and literally ask me, what are you? Because, okay, my hair's dyed purple right now. I'm naturally ginger, but also get nice deep golden pigment from being out in the sun because I'm mixed, you know. And so I've had people be like, what are you? And I'm like, I'm a fucking human, thank you very much.
Yeah.
But there's a world of difference between what societal paradigm box they would want to put somebody in versus, well, no, I have a mixed ancestry of, you know, ethnic Jewish and Celtic and indigenous and Black. And so am I going to be like, I'm one of these things? No, I am all of these things.
Because that's who you truly are. That is who you are. That what makes you you. I'm New African and Choctaw. That is who I am.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's no amount of blood quantum bullshit or any other social form of erasure of identity that's ever going to fucking change that.
It does not change that. Just because we're here within these borders does not make us any less African. Period. It does not. It does not. Because we have fought a long, hard way to even stay, for our people to even stay alive within these borders. We have resisted a lot, and we still are. We don't get a break. We're not supposed to get a break. As long as we still stay oppressed, as long as we're continue to be racialized, as long as we're continue to be gendered, as long as we still are in class apocalypse, then, you know, it won't change anything. But that doesn't change our African roots. Our ancestors are still very much here. Our ancestral communities are still very much here. They're all still here. They are all still here back home. They are all still here. The Ibos, the Arubas, the Iwis, etc. They are still very much here, still in the millions, even though they're actively being oppressed by the puppet governments that the English bourgeois have put on my homeland. They still exist in the millions and in the hundreds of thousands. They're still very much here. It doesn't change anything. We are still African. We are not 50% African. We are not 80% African. We are African, period.
It's one of those things that, you know, again, the societal paradigm does not define actual ancestry, and it doesn't matter what fucking percentage of what. It's just, we are all a fucking amalgamation of various peoples who have acclimated to our environment since the original human diaspora out of where?
Africa,
the fucking cradle of life.
Our indigenous cradle of life. We have birthed a cradle of life, a cradle of nature, a cradle of ecology, a cradle of technological advancement, of science, math, all that stuff. Just like Abya Yala. Our histories still interlink. We don't have to have history here pre-colonization in order to affirm that.
Damn straight. Sean, I see you got some thoughts you want to share. Do tell.
Okay, so as you were mentioning, hang on, these puppies might go off here in a second. As you were mentioning, you know, like, people ask you what race you are. I have literally been asked, my entire life, I mean, I'm sure as all of us have, but if there is brown people in that country, I have been told I look like people of that country. And it does not matter if it's, you know, South America, North America, all of Europe, Middle East. Like, if there are brown people, hey, you look like you're, you know, Guadalajaran. And no, dude, I told you I'm half black, half fucking white. Like, get the fuck over it. It is very annoying. But, you know, it's nice to know that I could literally disappear into anywhere in the world
and blend in.
And blend in, apparently.
I feel you. I've even this was quite a comedic moment. Had somebody ask me if I was Greek because of, you know, my strange combination of features here, and my response was, Well, no, I don't have any Greek in me, but I have had some Greek in me before, and it was kind of fun. Get the fuck out of here. Um, you know, but it's one of those things where people don't know how to like even address that of asking like, what's your ancestry, instead of just being like, what are you? you know, it makes for awkward interactions sometimes of like, come
And there's almost no smart ass answer that they're really willing to accept. And I've tried like as many as I can think of. No, but where are you from really? Right here. I was born right fucking here in California.
Yep. Yeah, people are weird. Myself included, just not in those manners. I'm weird in fun manners.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder, like, how fucking colonized is your goddamn mind when people want to, you know, I again put people in these boxes in accordance with some strange social paradigm that doesn't actually speak to who you are.
That's just the bourgeois talking. That's the bourgeoisie talking. Because once again, like Fred Hampton said, it doesn't matter what color. We have two classes, the bourgeois and the proletariat, or the lumpen proletariat, which still counts.
Right.
Our real enemies is the bourgeois that have made these conditions in the first place. That is who our real enemies is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what enemies are. And we have a responsibility, like Frantz Fanon said as well, to pick a side. Either we make a new world and create new cradles of life, or we will collapse under the deafening dominance of colonialism. Even though it's human behavior, that's not what human beings are. It's only existed for like 531 years, like full throttle, starting with Columbus. Like, that's not a part of our history. It's just a fantasy break of human history. It's fabricated history. And we can make a new history, a new world. It is definitely possible. But if you continue to allow colonialism to control you, if you allow the doom that it has created to make you collapse under it, to kind of surrender to colonialism, then it will indeed continue.
Yeah.
You have to have that willpower to be able to put your boots on the ground and actually start doing the work towards a new world. It is definitely possible. It is definitely possible. It can literally start today.
And it literally starts with unfucking your mind of that bourgeoisie psyop bullshit that was built to lie to you. What you were just saying reminds me of a meme I saw the other day of two people talking, and the first one asked, well, are you poor class, are you middle class, are you upper class? And the person responding to him was like, no, that right there is divisive bullshit that the bourgeoisie created in order to keep people divided and fighting amongst each other instead of against them. You are either the working class proletariat or the owner class bourgeoisie. There is no other class. You are either the exploiter or the exploited. You are the oppressor or the oppressed. What fucking side are you on?
That's it. And we even talked about this in the young lords chapter, where we talked about the split between the Chicago Young Lords and the New York Young Lords, because of the fact that Chicago, my city, is the city of the lumpen proletariat, and there were a lot of lumpens in the Chicago Young Lords.
Yep.
And compared to New York, they had largely college students, so that class divide was very, very apparent. And the fact that it was largely a lumpen chapter in Chicago with Cha Cha Jimenez you know, it made sense for why they had such a unique revolutionary plight, because they were actually in these conditions. Lincoln Park, under urban genocide, Cabrini Green, the Ida B. Wells projects, the gardens, all these lumpen conditions that capitalism has created in Chicago, before, the making of the Dan Ryan Expressway and all these other, so-called advancements that only engage in the urban genocide of the colonized lumpen proletariats in the city at the time, especially because it was so bad and it was so meticulously planned. Like that's it right there. That's literally it right there. The Chicago Young Lords were largely lumpens, and the New York chapter was largely, students in college in these Western institutions. So, like, there's no such thing as a lower class, middle class, or upper class. Either you are oppressed or oppressing. Are you exploited or are you exploiting? There's only two.
Fucking precisely.
And the proletariat is most of us, and the bourgeois are only like at least under like 5,000 people. Kind of like the capacity for the Aragon Ballroom here in Chicago, in Uptown, in Hillbilly Heaven. It has a capacity of 5,000 people. Like, you can literally fit the whole bourgeois class in that ballroom. That's how many people we're up against. But it's poor people going against working class people at Walmart or at Target or at any other store, as we see, on the internet, because that they want to create that divide. They want to create that dissent for poor people to be psychologically capitalist, so that they can go against the working class as if, they are the real enemy. But our real enemy is the global bourgeois capitalist imperialist class. That is who we're up against, under 5,000 people at least.
Yep.
We can be
Precisely. There's literally actually about 2,000 billionaires on the entire planet is all. The other, bourgeoisie are just millionaires who are at the upper end of the millionaire scale. But yeah, we greatly outnumber them. Sean, you've got your hand up with some thoughts to share?
I do. Actually, years ago, I met this youth. I was like 15, he was like 14, 13, something like that, on a chat room. I have kept up with him, and we've been interested, blah blah blah. He is adopted, but his family seems to be petite bourgeois, and I found out exactly how much he's supposed to be getting. It's something like 27 million. But honestly, like, my whole point is that I'm starting to see out of the petite bourgeois class some really disgusting behaviors. I mean, for example, that whole Oprah and The Rock asking for money for Maui.
Oh yeah. And the fact that The Rock is from has descent from Samoa, which is still under occupation by the US. He is fully aware of it. And I know he's fully aware of it, because if he wasn't, it's not even like old news. Like, they're still under occupation. So there's no way in hell that he will even pretend to go to another native land in Oceania that is still under occupation by the US, Hawaii, and ask us for money?
Right. Which brings me to my
dollars.
Yeah. Which brings me to my point. At what point do we divide the line between petite bourgeois and the proletariat? Because honestly, this particular person, let's just call him Rue, um, he has called me recently with the most amount of slurs in a single sentence that I've ever fucking heard. And just seeing The Rock go up there and ask for that, knowing full well that his diaspora and many like him are still suffering under this kind of rule. Where do we draw the line? Because honestly,
Where do we draw the line?
Rue could stand to lose that $27 million and endure some fucking real hardship.
Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, to be that ignorant against your own indigenous homeland, to be that ignorant, to be that purposely ignorant against your own continental homeland like that. Really?
And it's even worse in Oprah's case. She is a billionaire. She is one of those 2,000 of top of the fucking bourgeoisie globally. Her net worth is $2.5 billion. Let's put this in perspective, okay? With the average United States income, it would take you or I over 14,000 years to earn 1 billion. Let alone the $2.5 billion she has accumulated from exploiting other people's fucking labor to serve her little fucking Hollywood empire of shit shows. And people are trying to defend her, saying, oh, but she donated $1 million out of her own pocket. That's the equivalent of me having $2,500 and saying I will donate $1. Okay.
Come on. And also,
by the way, Oprah's house in Montecito, everybody knows where she lives. Everybody can point you to her house. So finding her is not going to be a problem.
It's a problem. And also, let's put this into context as well. On her mom's side, she is a descendant of the indigenous Capel people of either Sierra Leone or Liberia, I believe. Yeah, Liberia. Like, to be that ignorant against your own Capel ancestors like that, knowing that there is a rocky history between enslaved indigenous Africans and the indigenous Africans already in Africa, with Liberia's history, because it's so nuanced and so rocky. Like, being a Capel descendant, you would know that what you're doing is full-blown violence, full-blown class violence, not only against your ancestral people, not only against your ancestral homeland, our homeland, but also to the fact that you have all this money from the Oprah Winfrey Show, because it was a big show, and
her books.
Yeah, it was in Chicago, I think, for its entire run. And the fact that you could be that ignorant against your own people and you're a Capel descendant, like, how false, how violent is that? You have plenty enough money. You have plenty enough of our resources to give back to us. You have plenty enough of our destiny to give back to us. You have plenty enough of wealth to give back to your ancestral people. Give back to those people. Like, really?
You want a stick?
Like, an actual redistribution of the wealth held just by those 2,000 some odd billionaires on the planet would literally end every financial problem that the masses of 8 billion people are facing. And, people act like, oh my God, because, we talk about redistribution of wealth and they're like, oh, you want to steal what that person earned? No, motherfucker, there's no.
We're trying to help each other.
For anybody to actually earn that amount of money. They literally stole it from everybody who did the work,
Oh, God damn it. Come on.
produce that value,
Okay.
produce that
It's
fucking
cold. I don't want to be outside
work.
anymore, which means you don't have a supervisor, which means you need to get over here.
You talking to the puppies?
Oh, shit, I forgot. I'm sorry.
It's
No,
okay.
at first
No,
I thought you were going somewhere with it, and then you said you have no supervisor, and I'm like, you're talking to the dogs. but
hey,
yeah, like it's befuddling how people who are making like $30,000 to $50,000 a year get big fucking mad about wanting to defend billionaires like they earned that. No, the fuck they didn't.
no, they did not. They
Do
did not.
14,000 years worth of work to actually earn that? No, that means that they had to steal 14,000 years worth of work, labor, production, and wealth created from other people for every $1 billion that they fucking have.
And the irony is that Oprah comes from a lumpen proletariat background.
Yep.
Irony there. In Kosciuszko, Mississippi, I believe it's not that far from Brookhaven, Mississippi, where my entire dad's side is from.
Mm-hmm.
And they migrated up to Chicago. So like, come on. The fact, like, you're from a lumpen proletariat background, you know what goes on. You've been in it.
Yep.
Why contribute to it, knowing that this was how you were raised? This was the conditions, the material conditions that you were raised in. You know this. And I know you know this. To be that ignorant against, like, come on.
She has literally chosen to become a colonizer of color.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter if you're a colonizer or a colonized person. Being part of the bourgeois class outnumbers everything else. It outnumbers everything else. It doesn't matter. Being bourgeois outnumbers everything else. So whatever entails the bourgeois class, it dominates over everything else. Yep. No matter how hard you try to stay relevant with your background, it doesn't matter. Because the fact of the matter is, if you are part of the bourgeois, you are part of what the bourgeois does, and you stand by that.
Yep, she is part of the oppressor class.
You are part of the class. The exploited turned into the exploiter. You went from exploited to exploiter.
Yep. And people want to call that success. And it's like, get the fuck out of here, because true success, what that would look like is if she only kept enough of that money for herself to live comfortably and spent the rest living or lifting other people out of poverty. And people want to act as if she's some kind of fucking Captain Save-A-Ho because she's occasionally bought somebody who's poor a car or some fuckery like that I guarantee you she's writing off on her taxes and getting accommodated for that expense any fucking ways. But the fact of the matter is, instead of doing some real good in a large scale manner that she has the capacity and ability for, she's chosen to just keep acquiring more fucking properties and whatever playthings, fucking private jets, yachts, etc., vacation homes for her fucking self. And anybody with any fucking sense and any kind of fucking ethics would be going, there's no possible way for me to spend all this fucking money in my lifetime. Maybe I should do some goddamn good with it. I can't fathom that fucking attitude of just accumulating and hoarding that much wealth. If I were to go out and, like a few weeks ago when the Mega Millions hit like 1.5 billion, damn right I bought a ticket, because I was looking at that as shit, somebody's got to win, and if I do, that would be hella mutual aid funding. I would literally put a tiny fraction of that in the bank in order to have the interest alone to fucking live off of so I could dedicate my full-time work to revolutionary work. And the rest of it would be going towards buying people housing, buying people transportation, getting them set up with community gardens, getting them health care, the whole fucking 9 yards. I could not fathom even thinking about keeping all of that money for my fucking self when it could improve the lives and the material conditions of so many other people
So
to
many
find
of us,
a fucking dignified life.
for us, and we embrace it. We just embrace these billionaires that we know are exploiting us, that are stealing our resources, that are stealing our destiny from us. Like, that's not success. It's they're literally flaunting their wealth in front of you. And you know it. You see it. But you embrace it? How ignorant of you to even sit up there and embrace a billionaire while you could lose your house tomorrow, while you could lose your adequate transportation tomorrow, or you could lose your job tomorrow.
The basis of this comes back to that delusional idea of the American dream. And as George Carlin said, the reason why it's called the American dream is because you must be fucking dreaming to believe it. Wake the fuck up. You are not a temporarily embarrassed millionaire, motherfucker, if you are living on $30,000 to $50,000 a year or less. The fact that people who are making these average wages of an American citizen are actually going out there and trying to fucking go to bat and defend billionaires and millionaires is beyond me. It is so fucking delusional of them to be like, oh my God, but we can't tax billionaires at 90% because I've deluded myself into thinking that one day I might be one of them and I wouldn't want you to take it from me. And it's like, shut the fuck up and sit down and get some sense, please.
Like, please. And they have, when I was back in high school, they heavily promoted that complex to us. Oh my God. It was an all boys school, like right by the former IB Wells project. So it was every single day they promoted that whole billionaire, multimillionaire idea to us. They wanted us to become fascist. They wanted us to become revisionist. They wanted us to, be more to be more of an incel than they already were, because of whatever colonial ideals of gender that we have been brainwashed with since birth. They were heightening it to the max, as high as they could get, with all of this, generational wealth BS. And I was like, no, we don't want generational wealth. We want socialist revolution. We want a socialist world, period. That is what we want. We don't want generational wealth. We want our wealth and resources back. That is what we want. Becoming a multimillionaire will not save your people. It will not save us. It will not save anyone. It won't.
Even reverting back to taxing billionaires at 90% wouldn't fucking fix the problem. They would still have amassed so much fucking wealth that it's disproportionate and causing harm to the people. We need to eradicate that idea altogether. And this is nothing but a mind fuck from the education system trying to teach you that, of like, basically, well, if you work really hard and just step on enough of other people's fucking heads, then eventually you can go from being the oppressed to being the oppressor. And it's like, how the fuck is that a life goal?
How is that a life goal? How is that real for anyone? Will taxing billionaires stop climate change? No, it will not. Will it stop sexual violence in our communities? No, it will not. Will it stop gun violence? No, it will not. Will it end drug addiction and substance use disorder and alcoholism? No, it will not. Only the organization of the proletariats and the weapon proletariats will stop all of that. Taxing billionaires, our oppressors, taxing the bourgeois will not save us from literal class apocalypse against all life and all nature. That's an That's being idealist, completely beyond being idealist, and that's it. An idea that will never ever come into fruition, no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you quote unquote work hard for it. You will still be killed by them. Get out of that complex, get that out of your head, and start thinking from the perspective of the realities that you are in, of the material conditions that we are in, and actually make radical change through that. Not by this idea that will never ever happen. Because that's the point. It will never ever happen. Because that's what the bourgeois wants. They want you to dream of being part of them, that want to be a part of them, not understanding that you will literally commit attacks against your own people and life, all life, any kind of life, being part of them. And they know it.
Damn straight. Which brings to mind another facet of this fuckery that I want to address. Because there's a lot of people who have a fucked misconception of what socialism and communism actually fucking means. And these idiots love to quote Fauci with, "You'll own nothing and be happy about it." And it's like, first off, Fauci is not a socialist or a communist and doesn't fucking speak for us. And that idea right there is nothing but anti-communism, anti-socialism, a falsehood to shit upon the idea with pretending as if it means you'll own nothing. This comes down to motherfuckers not understanding the difference between private property and personal property. Private property is the means of production, as in your factories, storefronts, etc., places of work. And when we say we want to end private property, that means we want to end the either single ownership of, or, a handful of people owning those means of production, and make it a collective ownership of the workers owning their means of production.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with your personal property of the home you live in, the car that you drive, your fucking toothbrush, your clothing, etc. It has nothing to do with that. The only place where it would even apply to housing is fucking landlords who do not actually have the right to own 50 million fucking houses and be renting them out to other people for their own personal fucking gain. In that case, yes, those homes that are being rented out have been pulled into that area of private property of means of production, because that landlord is treating that as an investment income, not a real income, not earnings, not wages, not work being done, because that's not a real fucking job. But those properties would absolutely be fucking seized and redistributed to people who actually need fucking housing, not the home that the landlord actually lives in. No, we'll leave you the fuck alone about that, because everybody needs housing. But you do not need to own 50 or 100 or 1,000 other fucking houses like these goddamn investors in these corporate conglomerate fucking corporations that are buying up all of the fucking real estate so that they can turn around and artificially drive up the cost of housing and own everything so that people don't have the opportunity to buy, because those corporations are not interested in selling the homes to people for them to own. They simply want to seize everything and be profiteering off of it. So yeah, that part of it would come to a fucking end. But communism and socialism does not mean you will own nothing and be happy about it. Communism and socialism means you will own your home, and you will own the means of production where you work. Therefore, you will own the full value of your labor and actually be making exponentially more money than the tiny fucking pittance that you are being granted from these fucking corporate overlords. There's no fucking excuse for workers to be literally producing millions in labor value every year per person and be getting paid $50,000 or even $100,000 of that. That is still a tiny fucking pittance out of what your labor is actually fucking producing in these factories, in these workplaces, and you are actually entitled to own the full value of your labor, not have the lion's share of it stolen by some fucking cunt that wants to call themselves owner. And before anybody gets insulted by the word cunt, it means can't understand normal thinking. That is how I apply that term here, because anybody who thinks that they are entitled to steal the majority of wealth that someone else produces with their actual labor can't understand normal thinking.
They can't. And that's also why it's very important that in order to decolonize these people's way of understanding communism and socialism, and even colonize people's ideals of anarchism as well, because anarchism is not as bad as what people make it out to be, as long as it's from the perspective of colonized people, i.e., anarchata or Black anarchism. Mm-hmm. It's very, very important to start small with what language we use with them, to not scare them off, like we talked about in the Young Lords Book Club, to use language that they will be able to actually understand on the spot, and then go in with the bigger demonized language, like, you know, socialists, you know, communists, stuff like that, because we have not been taught what communism actually means. We're just told to be against it, to be afraid of it, because it's the control of our livelihood, and it's not that. That's the bourgeois talking.
Right. That's the bourgeois feeling threatened by the idea of them not getting to exploit labor anymore, and trying to tell you, well, this is bad for you. No, it's not bad for you. It's bad for them, because then they would have to actually live a normal fucking life with a normal fucking income that they would actually have to work to earn, instead of sitting on their fucking asses pushing a pencil and pretending as if they deserve to get paid thousands times more per hour than the people actually doing the fucking work. It is a threat to their fucking autocracy, their fucking financial exploitation of the masses, and they are fucking scared of it, and they fucking should be. Because the fact of the matter is, we outnumber them greatly, and they fear the poor uprising and overthrowing their fucking oligarchy and their power over us, and keeping us literally in shambles so that they can have countless fucking vacation homes and fucking yachts that could house 1,000 fucking people on them. And fuck them for that. Seriously.
Like that's essentially what it is. That's essentially what it is. And there's a lot of potential. We just gotta unlock it in some way, shape, or form creatively, if we want to be able to actually live with no stress at all about, you know, how much money we're gonna have this day, or, you know, if we're gonna be able to have our rights affirmed, you know, not having our lives up in the guillotine by 9 people.
Yeah.
To have a world where we don't have to deal or even think about that, or have that mind, that that thought over our heads, to be able to make a world where we cannot have our lives up in the guillotine by 9 people that have more wealth and control over 330 million people within the borders that they have created out of colonialism. To make a world where we don't have to stress about the thought of having our livelihood be commodified and exploited, and, you know, be up in the gallows by the bourgeois class. And that's very, very important for us to organize now, because, you know, that time is now. Once again, it's been time, but that time is definitely now, because it's now or never. These bourgeois forces, they're not afraid. They're not afraid, and once again, with their delusion that they have created, they'll go to any means necessary to keep their dominance, to try to keep whatever dying existence they have left, because we know that they're dying off now, that it's collapsing under the seas because they know they won't last. So it's essentially dragging us down with them, the entire earth down with them, as a parting gift. And we need to be sure that we don't accept that parting gift, that we can be able to back that up with principle, with uh, with a scientific revolutionary approach to be able to defeat them, so that we're not just going up against them for the sake of violence, i.e. the Weather Underground. We're not trying to be the Weather Underground. We're not trying to beat those people. We're trying to be principled people with a mission to create a new world, a new cradle of life for all of us, because we don't have to live this way. It doesn't have to be this way, but it's our responsibility to make sure that those conditions completely change, for the system to completely go down, so that we can be able to live, for our nature to be able to live, so that their environments don't turn into acid, so that their environment doesn't become contaminated by remnants of nuclear waste from a nuclear explosion 13 years ago. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to live this way. But once again, it's our responsibility to make that actually happen.
Right. Because if there's no other clearer signs that this fucking system needs to be turned on its head, it's this. Look at the sheer number of people who are working for some corporate conglomerate and can't even afford the gas to get to work. There is no justification for, say, this owner of a McDonald's franchise to be living in a fucking mansion, and their workers needing to go on mutual aid pages asking, can somebody help me with gas money so I can get to work, because I can't even afford to drive to work today. And that's the situation a lot of us are in, of not even being able to make ends meet, or even if they got gas in their car, having to crowdfund to be able to get a coffee and some fucking lunch during their workday, because their employer is paying them so fucking little that they don't have the means to just feed themselves. Things like that. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with this world here? And this right here is why so many people are finally starting to wake up and recognize these material conditions. Even if they don't know the terminology for it, they're looking at it and going,
Also, they're not
fucked. I'm losing out by having this job, not benefiting from it.
right. They're now starting to slowly see, without the terminology, that it doesn't matter how far they go into the state to affirm their not rights under this system. They're starting to see and realize that they are just as much of a part of this, just like everyone else. That they're now starting to see that maybe we should stop being so fixated on voting and going to the state in order to affirm us, and maybe we actually create a new world for once. Right. Because it doesn't matter. The voting ballot is ammunition against all life, and finally, some people are slowly but surely starting to realize that, as we've seen since March. They're starting to see that maybe this was not the right approach. Maybe we should actually start creating a new world once and for all. Maybe we should probably stop going to the voting ballots and actually create a completely new world for once, because this is not working. It's not working for us. It's never worked. But
no, the only people it's ever worked for is the oligarchy, the fucking bourgeoisie that are exploiting everyone else. And Sean, I see you've got some thoughts to share on this too.
I do actually. I've before, okay, I've been in Colorado for the last year. Colorado's cool, it's pretty, but you know, I'm gonna start digging around into the history of this place because back in Ventura, where I lived for 20 plus years, they just found something like 500,000 barrels of DDT in the ocean off the Channel Islands, which frame from Santa Barbara down to about Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
They're all fucking leaking. I'm all for building a whole new world, but how do we begin to do that when we have 500,000 barrels of DDT just sitting on the bottom of the ocean, poisoning everything?
Like, that's what we have to figure out. Because once again, they know more. Obviously, they know more than we overall do. So to be strategic in how we can be able to, stop that once and for all, like to be strategic about it, because this cannot happen overnight. We cannot just think of, how to, get all this poison out of the ocean in one day. We have to be very strategic with it, because once again, the bourgeois system is not afraid. So we have to be very, very creative when it comes to getting this poison out of the ocean, because once again, they made it, they put it there, but we have to be realistic of how we're going to go through with it, because like they're literally poisoning us as we speak, and we know it's not normal, and we can be able to change it, but it cannot happen overnight. We have to be very, very, very creative. It takes a lot of meticulous planning out on how to stop these sources of class poison on ecology and human life to, end its existence, because we don't want that, but we have to be strategic about it.
And I fully agree with you. I mean, I know for a fact that, well, I mean, I don't know for a fact because I haven't sat down and actually figured out all of the science of it, but radiation can be cleaned up by hemp. Let's see, certain mycelium and I think bacteria can break down plastics. The solutions are out there. We just got to figure them out. So, with that, I am in full agreement. But, before we could even begin the restoration of things, we got to get rid of people like DuPont,
Like,
who has
we
been
have
poisoning the planet for pretty much their entire existence.
we have to figure that out, because this is not helpful for anyone, and they know it's not helpful for anyone. But with DuPont, they just don't care. It's all about wealth. At the end of the day, it's all about profit. It's about what they can get their hands on next. So we do definitely have to be strategic about it, because we can be able to stop it. Once again, we just got to be strategic about it. We just gotta put it in our minds to actually affirm to us that we can stop this. We can end this. We outnumber them. This is our chance. This is our opportunity now to reclaim life as we know it. This is our chance. But we have to put it in us, deep in our spirits, that we can stop this. We can stop this. We do have the willpower to stop this. We just gotta put our boots down first.
Damn straight. We need overhaul in every fucking vicinity to be able to actually fix the shit show that's been created by, corporatocracy and industrialization and the quote unquote free market that literally just means they're free to do as much harm to the people and the environment as they wish without being regulated.
And regulation is just BS, because they know they're not regulating anything. That's the point. They give them reign to do whatever the fuck they want to us, to disable us, to kill us, to poison us, and to kill our ecology, our ecological systems that have been here since, Earth has been around. So the fact that, that whole free market BS it's literally BS, because once again, it's free reign to do whatever they want to us without any kind of repercussions. They're not supposed to give repercussions. In a bourgeois society, they have free reign to do whatever. There's no such thing as regulation. There's
Right.
no such thing as, penalizing them, because that's the whole point.
Right. They want to be free from accountability.
Exactly. And I know we can be able to stop them. We just have to put it in our minds that we can indeed stop them, that we do have the power to stop them in their tracks once and for all. We do have that power. We do have that potential. I mean, if we outnumber them, then the strategies would be immensely beneficial for us and the earth. We just gotta affirm that once and for all, that we can indeed stop them. We can. Not that we can't, but we indeed can.
Yeah. And I mean, part of that is going to have to come down to people being willing to accept that this means ending certain industries like DuPont, and people are going to cry about, oh, but I really love my weed killer, keep my lawn green. Fuck you. Stop fucking trying to grow grass and start growing food and flowers for pollinators. Because we don't need industries like that. It's ridiculous that we have allowed the planet to be contaminated so that people can cater to what was actually a French thing of, let's have a lawn instead of having natural surroundings. This is fucking dumb. We should literally be eradicating every single one of these industries that does nothing but cause harm. And that means there's certain things that people find to be conveniences that they're going to have to get the fuck over themselves and let go of the desire for, because it's not actually beneficial to you, to your life, to your livelihood, to your family, etc., when these are the very things that are destroying the environment and going to make it where the future generations of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, etc., and down the line don't have a survivable environment to live in.
Exactly. Like, we have to give them up. We have to give them up, because this is not how we operated before colonization. So right. If we can be able to easily give up this fabricated condition that we are all living in, then we will make headway. If we give up those industries once and for all, our ecology will make some headway. It will make a huge difference when we start doing that.
Yep. And there's things that we need to explore that would be better options. For example, okay, right now we're fucking destroying the environment to mine for lithium, for example, in order to have long-lasting batteries for our electronics. Or even all the way down to like solar systems for those who are going, oh yeah, I want to go with solar because it's greener. They clearly have not looked into all of it. It could be greener if we were using things like hemp batteries that are not toxic, that require no mining, because you're literally growing a plant that, as Sean pointed out, cleans the fucking soil as it grows and is actually a process of bioremediation, healing the planet, and then using the products of that. Now, when you break down the hemp plant into its separate parts, every part of it is usable. The parts you can use for making hemp batteries, and then the fibrous parts that you can then use for building materials. Did you know hempcrete is one of the most sustainable building materials ever? It literally solidifies like stone, where it is a stronger structure than any kind of brick we've made from any other material. It also regulates itself moisture-wise, where it doesn't end up growing mold and mildew. It also is a great insulator, and it fucking is renewable. You keep growing more hemp crops, the cleaner your soil gets and the more resources you have for other things to actually make that green. And hemp batteries, going back to that thought, are actually more high powered and sustaining as far as keeping shit running than
And
any other batteries that we have managed to come up with. We would do far better having our solar arrays using a battery bank made from hemp batteries. We would be better off having hemp batteries for our technology. The whole fucking 9 yards. It's a win-win situation, but it's been fought back against by the motherfuckers who are currently profiting off of contaminating the fuck out of our soil and out of our water to mine their fucking lithium. That's their fucking cash cow, and they're not going to want to turn to anything else until they completely deplete all sources of fucking lithium. It's no different than the motherfuckers who own the oil companies wanting to fucking, exacerbate that situation to the point that there's none left to fucking tap out of the earth before they'll consider any other fucking options that wouldn't be destroying the planet. And that's another point where hemp comes into play, because you can make fuel from hemp too that is also more sustainable and actually produces less fucking carbon waste than fossil fuels do.
exactly.
Sean, I see you got your hand up again. What's your thoughts on this, bro?
I do.
You muted yourself. Oh, and now he's gone. All right, let's give him a second to hop back in. He must have hit the wrong button.
Say something. Hemp is a detoxifier.
Mhm.
That's essentially what it is. It's a detoxifier. It cleans out whatever is harming it, and especially concrete. We got concrete everywhere. It holds carbon dioxide.
Mhm. Yep. If we were to
There
start
we go.
paving roads with hempcrete and stuff too, that would solve a lot of fucking issues. We wouldn't be using these fucking oil-based things that are contaminants even on our roads.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Okay,
you made
I'm back. Sorry about that. I couldn't unmute or like turn on my video at all, so I was just like, okay. Anyways, hempcrete also has a fire resistance, which is particularly useful in fire zones of something like 1200 degrees for 5 hours. It's a really long time, and it just does not burn.
It
Yep.
doesn't burn. It doesn't burn. Even in indigenous societies, they were using that. But now we have, you got these forest fires with all these genital reveal parties, that are, burning up, you know, wildlife in ways that indigenous people never ever operated. They knew how to use their plants. They knew how to use their resources. They knew how to use fire where to set it, because it was their land. They took care of the land, and using hemp will make a huge difference.
Speaking,
Because you're not burning up wildlife. You're not burning up, the ecology in the rainforests and stuff. It can make a huge difference. A huge difference.
speaking of, the Shumash for the first time in something like 250 years are actually starting to do culturally informed controlled burns around Santa Barbara. I rather suspect, since they had a recent boat paddle out to the Channel Islands, part of their ancestral home, that they will also be allowed, if this pans out well, to go ahead and do it over there. Because as far as I know, the Channel Islands are just a giant fucking tinderbox. Oh, by the way, behind the Channel Islands, the U.S. military has a small sub base where they do missile range testing. And guess where all of that shit lands? Right in the fucking ocean.
So fucking unnerving and disturbing, and it pisses me off.
Yeah, I have a lot of knowledge that generally isn't well known or about Ventura County. Did you know that after they finished the atomic bomb in New Mexico or wherever they were working on it in that lab, the final checks happened at Port Hueneme CB base before it launched before they took off to Hawaii. So at one point, nuclear weapons were stored in Ventura County, and it really bothers me because that's not the only time we've had nuclear issues up there. The Santa Susana Laboratory is actually situated between the San Fernando Valley and Simi Valley. They had a meltdown that they never cleaned up. And at this particular time, there is a Mothers Against the Santa Susana Laboratories that have been going for the last 3 or 4 years, documenting all of the spikes in radiation around that particular city.
Yeah.
Because of that particular, and almost nobody knows that we had our own little mini Chernobyl right in California.
I think I knew about that a long while ago after the George Floyd uprisings, because that was a whole transforming period for everything. So I started to know more about stuff that the school system or the slave factories never taught to me. I did know about that. And the fact that it's on native land in Aslan shows you that how far they will go, because the same thing that they did in New Mexico, the same thing that they're doing in Califaslan, with that little Chernobyl that they had in the Inland Empire. Like, the mess is still there.
Yeah, except it's not Inland Empire, it's more coastal. Simi Valley is literally about 45 minutes from the beach.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. Inland Empire is more like Palm Springs area.
Yeah, the Palm Springs area. Yeah.
Just minor geographical correction. That's it.
Yeah.
It's important because the climate of people is so vastly different across those scant 100 miles.
Yeah, it's so vastly different, because I have a lot of comrades on that part of Califaslan. So, like, I know.
I had something else I was going to say, and I'm just going to stop raising my hand at this point because it's us three.
Right. It's like, just jump in when you need to.
Okay. But I'm also trying to give respect and let people say their piece, because being interrupted sucks. It really does, especially with us ADHD fuckers. Every one of us is like,
right, we get excited and we're like, oh my god. But yeah, when there's a bunch of us, we do try to stick with the raising hands to keep shit orderly, but it's just the three of us at this point, so that's okay.
I think we've said what we need to say. I think we said what we needed to say for tonight.
Yeah, I just looked at the clock. We are at about 2.5 hours, so we should wrap this up. But yeah, another awesome conversation, breaking down all kinds of facets of the fuckery we're contending with here. Because colonization has fucked everything in so many manners.
oh yes.
Yep.
Well, with that being said, I wish all of you a good evening. I hope you guys put some good sustenance in your bodies and have a good think about things while you rest up for tomorrow's debate.
Right on. Ditto on that. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we can wrap this up and head off to go get ourselves some good sustenance to feed our meat suits with. And about dinner time. But y'all have a lovely night, and I'm looking forward to the next one. All power.
All power.